So I had someone reach out interested in buying this topaz ring, and she needed it in a size 6.5, and this is a 9 3/4. And this was actually one of the very first rings that I ever bezel set. I used a really thin bezel like you would use for a cabochon. She said that if I could just resize the ring and then it would be like she would just purchase that and that would be it. But I told her that I wanted to remake the ring entirely and to set it in a thicker bezel setting. That's what we're doing now. I have my bezel soldered in my pickle pot. I'm gonna go pull it out. Let's see how it looks. So this is the bezel. I still have to cut this little piece off, but you can see it's so much thicker than, say, this piece of sheet that I would use to make a bezel for a cabochon. With this, oops, dropped my topaz. With a bezel like this, I'm gonna carve into the metal to create a seat, and then I'll still have metal around the edges to fold over the topaz. I just finished melting down an ingot of silver, and I'm gonna roll it out into wire to make the band of the topaz ring that I'm working on. When you're working with metal and you're either hammering or rolling the metal, it hardens it. And in between rolling or hammering, you have to do something called annealing. And annealing basically restructures the crystals inside of the metal to make them much smaller and more spaced apart, which makes it more malleable. If I'm rolling this out, every time I roll it, it causes the crystal structures to bind together and form larger crystal structures, which become more brittle and easily broken. When you're rolling, it's very important to make sure that you're checking your metal in between rolls to make sure it's not cracking. And if I start cracking, I'll show you what it looks like. I don't intend to, because I don't want to waste this metal, but that's why for me, I usually go 3 or 4 rolls before I anneal, just depending on how much pressure I'm putting on the metal. But I'm just going to show you what that means, and then we'll take a look at how to anneal. So I have my square wire rolling mill set up over here. This is a pretty small ingot mold or ingot, so we shouldn't have to hammer it out before I can start rolling it. But I'm just gonna get some tension in between, not too much, just enough to get it started, but I can begin forming my wire. So I usually run it through and then I'll run it back through, so it's like I get 2 passes with the same tension. And when you're rolling square wire, you just want to make sure that every time you put it back through, you're turning it so that you're not just forming a rectangle. My mills are not bolted down, so they will wiggle around, and that's okay. So we're starting to get that square shape, but now we're going to go anneal. When I anneal, I like to use 2 different types of soldering blocks. I'll use this honeycomb one as my platform because this reflects heat really well. And then behind it, I'll place my hard charcoal brick so that I get this real hot zone right here. So I just put my metal here. So I like to anneal with the lights turned out, and that just helps. I'll show you what I mean. It just helps you to see the change in color when you're annealing. I anneal silver and gold in the dark. I've never worked with platinum, but I know that you have to wear a protective, like sunglasses kind of thing, because it will literally burn your eyes. It's like magnesium. I don't know if you remember in like high school science class, they always said like, you can't look, was it magnesium or phosphorus? I don't remember, but there was one element that when you burnt it, you couldn't look directly at it because it would like permanently burn into your eyes and you would go like partially blind like that. Platinum does the same thing. So I'm going to show you why I like to anneal in the dark. I'm going to turn out the lights now that we have a light source, and you can see, let me show you. So when I anneal, I tend to use a bigger flame that still has a little bit of this orange here. You don't want something that's super strong because you'll just end up melting your metal. So I like to use a big flame, and I'm going to give you a little tip right now as well while we anneal. Okay, so you can see my big flame. And the little tip that I have while you're annealing is I don't like to point my flame straight onto my metal, because that means I literally only have one point that's hot and the rest of the metal is just kind of chilling out. So I like to use an angle, and that way, even though most of the direct heat is only at the point of that flame, that residual heat that's happening like over here is still heating up the metal. So as you can see, it's slowly starting to turn like a dark red. That's what we're looking for. But I'm just going to flick the lights on real quick to show you why I like to anneal in the dark. So this is with the lights on. You really don't see that color difference, and this can be deceptive and you can easily melt pieces. So let's turn the lights back off and let's keep going. So again, I'm just going to move my heat back and forth. You can really see in the camera how red it gets. In real life, it's not actually as red as it is on camera. It means we're getting there. Get it a little bit more red. Okay, that's good. So now I'm just going to let it like cool off. And by cooling off, I just mean I'm going to let it not be so red. I'm sorry, I know that the camera is not focusing because it's dark, but you can see the color shift. Okay, so now it's pretty much cooled off from the air. So we're just going to quench it in some water and we're good. So I won't be able to finish this ring today, but that's okay. I really need to go eat lunch because I have to leave soon to get to the gym. My boyfriend owns a gym and I help manage the front desk, and then also I help coach like the kids' classes. So that starts at 5 and it's 3:13, so I really need to go eat lunch, but I just wanted to at least cut out the ring band for this, and then we can finish everything up tomorrow and hopefully get this topaz set. Day 2 of making the topaz ring, and I am going to be soldering this ring band. So while that sits in the pickle pot, I'm just going to clean up my bezel a little bit. So this just happened. I was shaping the ring on my ring mandrel and the solder seam on the bezel opened up, and I'm just done with it today. So we're done for today because I'll just keep ruining it, and we'll try again tomorrow. So this is the reality of metalsmithing. Sometimes you get to the final step of what you're working on and something bad happens, like the bezel cracking open. I don't think I will be able to fix this without scrapping the entire piece. So I'm gonna cut this vlog short here. Well, it's not really short, this has been pretty long. So if you've made it this far, thank you. And attempt to remake this ring another time. Tomorrow maybe, but it's just really frustrating. And that's the reality of metalsmithing. So thanks for watching and see you next time.